Rapunzel. There once lived a man and his wife. They were good, simple people, but they were not happy, for they longed for a child. At last the woman grew so sad that she fell ill and took to her bed. From her window she could see into the garden of the big house that stood next door. This house belonged to a witch, and the garden was surrounded by a high wall, so everyone kept well away. But the more the woman gazed into that garden, the more she longed to taste the fresh green herb that grew there. "You must fetch me some of that rampion herb to eat, or I shall surely die," she said at last to her husband. So one night, when all was dark, the man climbed the wall and hastily gathered a handful of leaves. Soon he was back home, safe and sound, and his wife tucked into the herb. She began to feel much better. But as the days passed, she fell ill a second time, and begged her husband to fetch her more of the health-giving herb. So it was that he climbed the wall again. But this time the witch was waiting. "How dare you creep into my garden and steal my rampion like a common thief?" she demanded. The poor man fell to his knees, covered his eyes, and quivered like a leaf. "Forgive me," he begged. "My wife could see the plant from her window, and it looked so good that she longed to taste it." This compliment softened the witch a little, but then her eyes grew cunning. "I shall let you go on one condition," she hissed. "Your wife will soon have a baby, but when it is a week old you must give it to me." The man was so terrified that he would have agreed to anything. "Yes, yes," he gasped, and without a backward look he scrambled over the wall and ran for home. Some months after this, his wife did indeed have a baby daughter, and great was their joy. But on the 7th day after her birth, the witch swept into the room, plucked the child from the cradle, and was gone. The man and his wife were grief-stricken, but however hard they searched, they never saw the witch or their daughter again. The witch raised the little girl all alone, and named her Rapunzel, for that is another name for the rampion plant. When Rapunzel was 16, the witch locked her away in a tall tower in the middle of the forest, and each day she would visit her and call out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair." Then Rapunzel would let her long plaits fall from the window, and the witch would hold on and climb up hand over hand. So the time passed, and poor lonely Rapunzel would sing to herself to while away the hours. Her voice was like sweet bird song, and one day it was heard by a prince who was riding by. He hid behind a tree when the witch arrived and watched as she clambered up into the tower. He longed to meet the girl with the lovely voice, and so, when the witch had gone, he climbed up Rapunzel's plaits and jumped inside the room. Rapunzel was astonished to see this handsome stranger kneeling before her, but he spoke to her gently. "Have no fear," he said. "You have won my heart with your beautiful singing, and now my happiness would be complete if you would agree to become my bride." Rapunzel did not need to think twice, and soon they had planned her escape. "I will bring you a length of silk thread each day, and you must make a secret rope ladder," the prince decided, and then with a shy kiss he climbed down Rapunzel's long plaits and rode away. So she worked night and day on her ladder and hid it carefully under the bed when she heard the witch calling. But one day she made a big mistake. As the old crone pulled herself up the side of the tower, Rapunzel leaned out of the window and watched her. "Why does it take you so long to climb up?" she asked. The prince climbs up in no time at all." Then the witch seized her by the arm and shrieked with rage. "I thought I'd hidden you safe from all the world, and now you have managed to deceive me. You will suffer for this, you wicked girl." She grasped a sharp pair of scissors in one hand and snip, snap. Soon Rapunzel's beautiful golden tresses lay upon the floor. Then she took the frightened girl far off to a bleak and lonely place and left her there all alone. That evening the witch lay in wait for the prince. Soon she could hear his strong voice ringing out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair." The witch tied Rapunzel's plaits to a hook on the wall and threw them out of the window. In a trice, the prince had scrambled up and leapt inside. But what a shock he got to find not his beloved, but the horrible witch waiting for him. "Ha ha ha!" she cackled. "Your little bird has flown. I have hidden Rapunzel far, far away, and you will never see her pretty face again." The prince was filled with despair, and the sight of the evil witch so revolted him that he jumped right out of the window. He landed in the rose bushes that grew around the foot of the tower, and their sharp thorns pierced his eyes. He was blinded, and hardly knowing what he was doing, he wandered off through the forest in search of his sweet love. The birds and beasts brought him food to eat, and without their nuts and berries he would surely have starved to death. The animals listened sorrowfully as he wept for the loss of his lovely bride, but they did not know where she was hidden, and they could not help. So the prince strayed through the wilderness for many weeks, and with each step his heart grew heavier and heavier. The little birds tried to lift his spirits by singing to him, but their song could not compare to that wonderful voice he'd heard so long ago in the tall tower. The months passed by until one day a new bird song was carried to him on the faint breeze, and his heart stopped still. He had heard that song once before. Could it be his Rapunzel? He stumbled blindly towards the sound, and although he could not see her, Rapunzel looked up and saw her prince at once. She ran into his arms and held him close. As she wept for joy, 2 of her tears dropped on his eyes, and suddenly they grew clear, and he could see as well as ever. "You will never be parted from me again," he promised Rapunzel. And so they made their way to his kingdom, and there they were married. They heard no more from the wicked witch, and Rapunzel and her prince lived happily ever after.